People think wealth is lost after 3 generations, but that's not actually true. Dynasties are created inside a household. Based on studies, which I tend to back myself with, what would you do if I told you it's not just education, marriage, businesses, and home ownership, but it's down to what these parents are teaching their kids on a day-to-day basis and what are they feeding into their kids' psyche to make them continue the generational wealth which was bestowed on their kids. Yes, it's true. So if you're trying to raise wealthy children or how you can build wealth in your adult years, it may come down to raise and not your innate intellectual being. This is where we always discuss nature versus nurture. So this famous sociologist, I believe she's French, called Annette Leroux. Annette Leroux, à la poubelle. Fantastique. So what she did, she spent years observing American families across different social classes of race, mainly between black and white race. So sorry for all you Hispanic and all your other race. This is just her studies. And her conclusion was middle class and upper class were actually producing complete different type of children, like from the fundamentals, with different assumptions about the world, relationships with authority, business, and the premise of education. Also, which was very important, relationships in terms of friendship and business partners. So the goal wasn't just to believe what parents believe, how they should raise their children, but to actually see what these parents did. Every parent will say they're good parents. They will all say that they raised their children the best way they could. But she actually studied them and watched them to see were they actually doing what they're preaching, or was it completely different? Just let me know in the comments, because as I was studying this and watching a video about this, big shout out to, I forgot her name, but her name has something to do with like building without borders. Yeah, she did amazing videos about this. And I want you to comment as I go through this explanation, if you agree or if you disagree, and what are your take on what I'm saying. So she basically broke her studies into 2 groups of how they raise their children. The first group was called conservative cultivation. With this group, both black and white, middle class, they both raised their children the same, or one may say they were very similar in their approach in raising children. The thesis was, with their hard work, they can actively develop a child's talent, opinion, and skills. You hear stuff like Project Mbappe, Project LeBron, or Project Patrick Mahomes. This is where the childhood of their children are basically a project, and they can create or destroy the project. So what they would do was enroll their children in multiple activities, like put them in golf, swimming, boxing, football, tennis, dancing, playing instruments, all at a very young age. And not forcing them, but encouraging them to go to these lessons on a regular basis. On average, middle class families who put their kids in 5 activities at the same time. 5. How many was I put in? I used to love sports. I still love sports. But I was in so many activities as well. This is crazy just thinking about my own childhood. And more or less the family's being was based around the children. In my community, Wellington, the highly vetted community of very successful entrepreneurs. Some of these people have kids, some people don't have kids. They say similar things. Like they do put their kids into a lot of activities, especially these entrepreneurs who weren't given money, who were self-made. If you want to join a community like Wellington, a like-minded peer group based in London, click the link in the description and apply. It's not easy to get into this group because it's highly vetted, but you can try and apply. And most of these parents will say they're preparing their kids for life. Like sports is teamwork, is getting yourself out there. Music is stimulating your brain in a different type of way, or learning a language. These were the reasoning or the justification of why these parents would more or less put their children into kind of ridiculous amount of activities. The second approach to raising children, which was commonly seen in the working class and the poor parents, was this ideology called accomplishment of natural growth. Black and white, working class and poor parents thought that they should always provide safety, food, and love. That's the main thing they need to provide for their children to be extremely successful. So while middle class children have around 5 activities, the poor or working class had more or less 1 or 2 activities. By the way, disclaimer, when I'm saying poor, I'm not saying they are poor, because I think being poor is a mindset, not an actual state of life. This is only based on the research I studied. This being said, if these working class or poor children only had 1 or 2 activities, most of the time were spent playing outside, going on iPads, watching TV, but not developing their skills in other activities. According to LaRue, this helped them build stability, creativity, and autonomy. But these kids were not structured or polished enough to be successful in life, or to be among the cliques of the elites. So I'm going to show you right now a list of the activities these kids were doing, which shows the activity of girls based on their social classes. So with a middle class white girl, they would do Girl Scout, piano, Sunday school, church, or softball team. But the informal activities would be restricted television, play outside with their neighbours' kids, or bake with their mums, or maybe even listen to music. However, the middle class black kid, they would do gymnastic lessons, church, Sunday school, or youth choir for the activity organized by their parents. And then the informal activities, watch TV, play outside, visit friends from school, and ride bikes. And when you go down to working class for white people, they're mainly doing Catholic education, dance school, or school choir. They also watch TV, visit relatives, and do homework. But then when you get to like poor kids, all you do is go to church, but also watching TV, visiting relatives, and play with Barbies. It's so crazy how, based on our studies, the poor kids will always play with Barbies, but the high-end or the working class kids, their parents don't really buy them Barbies or toys per se. And then when it comes to middle class boys, they'll be on the soccer team, swim team, piano, saxophone for white kids, but then for black kids, same thing, soccer team. The only difference, maybe they go to church and they have Sunday school. As I said, I had a lot of organized activities. I played rugby, I played football, I did track in terms of athletics. I did so much. I did Gaelic football, I did hurling. What else did I do? I competed a lot in all of these activities. I did guitar lessons. I did so much. And personally, I think that really helped me in life. A lot of my positive traits, I believe, are from sports. My competitive nature is from sports, or doing these activities from a young age and competing. I believe I will raise my kids in the exact same manner. One of the most important factors based on their studies was language was very important. The way parents intentionally spoke to their kids was like night and day, from the working class to the middle class to the upper class as well. In middle class homes, conversation was used as a development tool. Parents will engage with the kids, ask open-end questions, and always ask for what their kids thought about certain situations and get their kids' inputs. More or less reasoning with their kids rather than directing their kids from an authority standpoint. But the poor, working class, African American, black, Caribbean household, you don't do these type of things. You don't argue with your parents. You don't really say your mind. Not in all families, but in most families that I've witnessed. And this doesn't really help their kids. Their kids are now always relying to be led by other people or being told what to do. It sounds all woo-woo, but trust me, it's so important how you treat your kids and what you say to your kids, and being intentional on how to raise your kids. I am not a parent yet. However, I've done some research. I'm just giving you some research based on people within Wellington, successful people, and research done by highly intellectual people. And this is so important because the middle class home, based on this research, they get to a stage when they're speaking to C-suite executive, they know how to articulate themselves. They know that their thoughts matters. They know that they can have a different ideology or perspective than a flock. However, in a working class home, these kids grow up to being a bit shy, not really knowing how to present themselves or challenge senior managers because they're used to always not just being submissive, but their opinions are never heard. Her conclusion was these two type of approach will bring two completely different children, which will then turn into adults who see the world very, very differently, like night and day. She narrowed these categories to two different categories, which are entitlement from the middle class or constraint from the working class / poor people. Based on research, entitlement meant that when institutions are looking at you, you feel like they have to take you seriously. You feel like your opinion matters. Because we're middle class, we'll watch our parents negotiate, maybe house deals or business deals, or even challenge teachers. And they're able to see this and develop it by just watching their parents. So they learn the lesson systems are responsive to their actions. So they're more likely to negotiate a salary when they're looking for jobs. They're more likely to challenge a senior manager, not just for challenging them, but because they've done their own research. And more often than not, the challenge is actually the better solution, which will make them more successful by having a promotion, or maybe their business is now thriving. This is all according to the research, by the way. I'm not saying this is my own opinion, but this is based on research. I'm just spitting out there for you guys to take it or leave it. And the working class kids never see their parents challenging teachers or even negotiating. So they feel when they come into the real world that their opinion don't matter. They're not meant to say their mind. They're just meant to listen to instructions and be among the sheep. In closing, generational wealth is more than just the finances you can pass down, but it's the knowledge, the system, the development you intentionally pass to your kids, and the lessons and the wisdom and the knowledge. I'm not telling you how to raise your kids, but take what you want to take. YouTube's algorithm is extremely good. Any video they suggest here, I recommend you to watch.